Okay, and we are live. So,
Okay.
hello, Anna. Hello, everyone that is watching this video. It's another video of this series of interviews with language learning experts. And here we talk a little bit about language learning lives, the lives of learners and students, learners and teachers, sorry. So, today we have the one and only Anna Barcelos. I had the
Mhm.
honor of being her student, and she was also my research supervisor. And I'm very grateful because I learned a lot from you and with you during those good years. Uh,
Mhm.
so, before we start our conversation here, I'm going to introduce you. Uh, so Ana Maria Barcelos is a full professor at the Federal University of Viçosa. She holds a PhD in teaching in English as a second language from the University of Alabama, and she has experience in the field of applied linguistics with an emphasis on beliefs about learning and teaching foreign languages, acting mainly on the following themes: teacher training, learners' beliefs about teaching and learning English, emotions in language teaching, and the relationship between beliefs, identity, and emotions. She's the author of several books and collections on beliefs in teaching and learning of languages. So, hello, Anna, how are you?
Hello, Ronaldo. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody who is watching. Thank you so much, Ronaldo, for inviting me for this. Excuse me, my voice is a little strange today. I think the weather has changed here, so it's a little bit cool. I'm so honored and happy to be on this project with you. What a great idea, you know. So I was very happy when I received your invitation, and it's a pleasure and such a joy to talk to you. And you're in my heart as well as my former student and now as a professor as well. So all teachers feel happy when they see that their former students have gone on the pathway of their career, and doing so well as you are doing. So thank you.
Thank you for always accepting my invitations for these crazy
uh,
projects that I create.
Wonderful projects, wonderful projects.
So let's start this interview. I want to ask you if you could tell us how you started as a teacher and as a researcher on beliefs of language learning and teacher.
Mhm. Well, I am the youngest of eight kids, five brothers and two sisters. So I grew up in a house with a lot of people, and my oldest brothers, they always used to listen to music, American music, British music, as it was the case, or still is, in Brazil, the 70s and the 60s. So I grew up listening to the Beatles and Rolling Stones and all those major artists at that time. And so English was part of my childhood and teenage years. And I used to sing in English without knowing what it meant.
Yeah, I know.
It's so funny after you learn English and you remember how you used to sing.
You
Anyways,
create your own kind of
so I
language.
exactly, and you didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
It was so funny how you could sing something, that you didn't know what it meant. Anyway, so I had this passion for English because it was, well, I used to listen to Italian music as well, and French songs as well. At that time, it seemed it was more common in Brazil. But English had this special thing. I don't know what it was, but in any case, and I was good at Portuguese as well. I was a very good student and I loved Portuguese. So I think it was kind of natural for me to go into languages. I didn't question anything. I didn't have any other options, besides, languages. So, and then when I studied here at UFV, we did not have research as we do now or as we did in your time when you were here. I mean, there were some teachers who did research in linguistics, and I did try some, kind of scholarship and also anthropology. I love anthropology, and we had a great professor here, Alice Inez, and I loved her. And I think that's my interest, maybe my interest in beliefs had started there because, anthropology study, people's beliefs.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it then. And so after I graduated, I went to Belo Horizonte and I did try the master's in linguistics, and I'm so glad that I didn't pass because it wasn't what I wanted. So when I was living in Bahia, by chance, I found an announcement for summer courses at Unicamp in Campinas. And this was in 1992. And I said, wow. And I looked at the program and I said, wow, this is so interesting. I want to go and take these courses. And so I did. And I took two courses in that summer, January, one with our beloved latest John Schmitz and the other with Almeida Filho. And it was in Almeida Filho's course that he mentioned something. He said, learners and teachers, they have their own opinions, ideas, folk ideas about what language learning and teaching is, and these comes our culture. And when he said that, and I remember it clearly, it was like a light bulb and what went off in my head because I said, wow, this is it. Because before that, I used to pay attention to what my students were talking or saying about language learning. They used to say, as a student, I used to listen to my colleagues saying, well, you can only learn English if you go abroad, or this teacher is good because of that or another thing. And then I was curious. I said, well, why do they say this? Who says these things? Why? So I was curious. So when Almeida Filho said that, I said, aha, that's it. That's the thing that I'm hearing. And now it has a name, So then, it took a while because I wasn't a professor yet. Or maybe I was, I guess. Anyways, I started teaching at a university in Bahia. Then I started here, and then I started the master's. And then in my master's, I wanted to investigate this, which at that time, there wasn't much on beliefs. This was in the mid 90s, and the first article in applied linguistics on beliefs was in 1985 by Elaine Horowitz, and Anita Wenden in 1986, the pioneers in the field in applied linguistics. So I had to go for those places, to search for things. And so also in Brazil, I at that time, I got hold of an article by Wilson Leffa on students' conceptions. Then Nelson Viana, he had an unpublished manuscript on students' myths. So I started gathering these things, and trying to put it together in a concept that, there was already this concept of the culture of language learning, or the culture of learning in teaching. And so I got that concept also from Almeida Filho and investigated beliefs within that major concept, because at that time, this was what was possible, because we didn't have almost anything in Brazil. And so that's how it started.
Yeah, I didn't know you were a teacher in Bahia. I mean, yeah, that's new.
Oh, yes, I used to teach at now what is known as UESC, Universidade Estadual
Yeah.
Santa Cruz. At that time, it was Faculdade. And so it was very small, and I taught there maybe for 1 year or 2 years. And when I left, it became a state university.
Yeah.
And now Rodrigo Aragão is there. And
Yeah.
I went back there some years ago, and it was nice to see. It's a big university right now.
Cool. I didn't know that. Good to know.
Yeah, yeah,
And good to know about your path, because I mean, I know you quite a long time. I've
yeah,
known you quite a long time, and I didn't know this, and it
yeah.
all makes sense. Uh,
Yeah, it's strange, right? But when we are living it, we don't know. It's not like you go in your life thinking, I'm going to do this.
yeah.
No, things happen. Things happen, and I like Liz Gilbert, she talks about being curious instead of having passion, because she says passion is a little bit complicated, but if you are, then you go and research, you look, you give another look, and then you proceed, So I think it's very interesting when she talks about that.
Yeah, and as you said, when we are living at the moment, we actually don't know what's going on. But
No.
when we look retrospectively, we see that sometimes it all makes sense. I
Yes,
think
I think
that's
it's the narratives of our lives, right? So when we are narrating, like I am narrating a little bit
yeah,
of my story here, then we kind of make sense in this narrational
yeah.
time, yes.
Great. So you started in the 90s, and you are nowadays a reference and a person that is known for researching beliefs in Brazil. So can you share with us a little bit about how the research on beliefs of language learning and teaching has evolved over the years?
Okay, thank you. That's a great question. And this is something that my colleague Paula Kalaya from Finland, whom I have worked with her for a long time, and since 2003, I guess. And we have been trying to track down these changes. We have done some reviews for some books and collections, and now we just submitted a chapter for a handbook showing this development, about learner beliefs. And we were surprised because we Googled it, and there were more than 1,000 entries on language
Wow.
learner beliefs. Yes, so it was impossible to do that review. So we kind of looked at the trends, but I think it continues to grow. The research continues to grow more now abroad than in Brazil. I think in Brazil we had an expansion. We had a lot of studies in the 2000s, mid 2000s. But now it seems that the studies are concentrated in some parts. We have a good group in Argentina as well. People do a lot of research in Argentina on beliefs. But it has evolved in the sense that when we started, in the mid 90s, the only view on beliefs, learner beliefs, not teacher. Teacher is a different strand and a different development, I would say. But learner beliefs, it was seen as something mental, individual, stable, fixed, inside one's minds. And then we actually, Paula Kalaya, she published an article in 1995 where she already said that beliefs were different than that. They were constructed in interaction, and very much in discourse, and they were more dynamic than what we thought they were. And then in 2003, we published the book, with the collection of papers on beliefs, including, metaphors and use of diaries and different ways of looking at beliefs that were more, we think, based on the context, taking more into consideration the context. And so we've been following that approach, let's say this approach, for since that time. But with this review, we see that there is still a lot of research. There is still a lot of research that uses, maybe closed-ended questionnaires to investigate beliefs. And that's not a problem in of itself, of course, because people have different research questions, right? But I see that sometimes these things, they go along, like parallel. You might have a different understanding of a concept, like we have of beliefs, and then other people still go on. They do research in the other understanding. So these go together, I guess, or they go, side by side. I don't know. But it surprises us because it's been such a long time, since 2003, so 17 years, that
Yeah.
we and a lot of people have talked about it. And then in 2011, we published a special issue of the journal System, where we also spoke of these ideas. And there is also an article by Rodrigo Aragão, where he talked about the relationship between beliefs and emotions, right? So, but in any case, the thing is that it has developed in a way that beliefs is seen as more contextual, dynamic, paradoxical, and within our interactions. And it's a pity that some people don't see it that way. And sometimes I think that people who are not aware of that view of beliefs, they may have a prejudice against beliefs, the word beliefs, and they may still think that it's that old view of beliefs that we are working with, and it's not. So in that issue of the system we had an article by Peter da Costa where he talked about language ideologies, So there are other people doing different things with beliefs, and also, I should say this, seeing beliefs from a complexity theory perspective as well. So we have that in teacher beliefs and a little bit in learner beliefs as well, but it has been out there as well. And in my own research, I started seeing more and more the connection between beliefs, identities, and emotions. And that was very much inspired by the work of Rodrigo Aragão. His PhD thesis in 2007, he had this connection, between beliefs and emotions. So that, triggered something in myself to start seeing this connection better.
Great. So, as a teacher's educator, what skills do you think a contemporary teacher should develop in order to become an English teacher? And which gaps do you think we need to fill in our teacher education programs in Brazil?
Okay. Wow. Good question. A huge question.
Okay,
I
let's go.
tried to answer it. No, it's okay. I thought of some things. I'm very much adept of self-reflection and reflection. I know it was also a theme, a very strong theme in research in Brazil some years back, and maybe not so much now. But I still believe in this. I think that reflective teaching is important. And I also like to quote Parker Palmer. He says that we teach who we are. And so if we know who we are, if we know ourselves, he even says that this is even more important, or as much as important as knowing your subject and your students, but knowing yourself. So I try to work with these with my students in the teacher education program. I try to have them write their language learning histories and then have them analyze or think about this, see if they can identify some of their beliefs and now emotions as well, so they can get to know themselves. Why do they have some actions in the classroom? Because if we know ourselves, it's theoretically a bit easier for us to deal with the huge complexity of teaching in the classroom. So I would say, self-reflection is important in teacher education. And within self-reflection, that means knowing your beliefs, your students' beliefs. And the second thing would be emotional literacy, which a lot of people are talking about now. And I know it's a hot topic in many countries, in the UK and other countries. They are using this as part of the curriculum for students. But teaching is an emotional activity. And we are so scared of realizing that or accepting this emotional perspective or side of teaching. We think that when we say this, people say, oh, I'm not a psychologist, emotions. But whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not, emotions are there, in teaching. And we have seen this expansion and an emotional turn or an affective turn in applied linguistics. A lot of publications on emotions right now. A new book actually has been out on well-being, teachers' well-being by Sarah Mercer and Tammy Gregerson. And so I think that we cannot get away from emotions, our students' emotions or our emotions. So we do have to understand and try to become aware of them. So we become more prepared, perhaps, to see when some emotions come to the surface, ours or our students. So I think that's very
And
important.
I,
And the other
just
thing
let me
is,
just
yeah, go
interrupt
ahead.
you for a second. And I think people are starting to realize the importance of knowing themselves better now that they are teaching in this uh, tumultuous situation. I have seen many of my friends who are really terrified, and students overstressed and anxious, and I mean parents. So I think
Yeah.
people are now realizing that it's a core part of teaching.
Yes, exactly. Because, if you're not feeling well as a teacher, it's very hard to give a good class, and you lash out at students, you give a bad answer, you are impatient, and I don't know if unfortunately, but teaching carries with it a lot of emotional labor as well. That's a
Yes.
concept, and so we have to sometimes to disguise our emotions, our real emotions, so the activity of teaching can happen. So it's a lot of stress for the teachers. And so if we talk about this with the future students, I think we have a better chance to help them. And so I've been trying to do that with my students, student teachers right now as well. And we are also offering for the first time in the graduate program in applied linguistics here, course in emotions in language teaching and learning. So, and I have a good response from the undergrad students when we talk about it, because they say, wow, I have never thought about that. This is so important. And so I would say that we need to look into that. And then the other aspect that I think is also the critical aspect of teaching in terms of realizing or recognizing the unjust system we have, the social inequality that affects students' learning, especially in Brazil, where we have this dichotomy of the private English courses and the public school, and this is so strong, such a strong belief and idea, ingrained idea in our society and in our culture of English learning in Brazil, that the students, they come to the university to become teachers and they say, I only studied in public schools and their views of public schools are not good, and we repeat the discourse around that public school students are not interested, which is not true, are not motivated. And then I try to ask them, who does this discourse serve? I mean, what is the function of
Yes.
these sayings? What do they do to us and to English teaching? Who is interested in this discourse? Why do we keep repeating these things when we know they're not true? We have several examples of public schools, of public places that do a job, and wonderful, public school teachers. So we need to change that discourse. We cannot buy into that, especially as English teachers, So that worries me a lot. And I agree with Vera when she says, and I never forget that sentence, she says, we should not write things or do things to denigrate, the public school, or say, continue this horrible discourse about public school and public school
Reinforcement.
teachers and students, right? So I think we need to change, and we can change that. And so related to that, something that also is not a new trend. It has been here for a while, but are the peace studies by Rebecca Oxford and also Francisco Gomes de Matos, a pioneer on this topic in Brazil, And Rebecca Oxford has now several books and articles on peace studies in language learning, and it's a great work, that I think we can use. And also Matilde Oliveiro in Argentina, she's doing that work as well. So I think we need peace
Yes.
and also a pedagogy of love, but not this naive vision of love. Because every time you talk about love, people tend to think that you are naive, innocent, that's just, oh, I love my students. No, the vision of love that I'm talking about, the pedagogy of love, is based on Freire,
Hmm.
that talked about dialogue, cooperation, justice. He talked about pedagogia da amorosidade, pedagogy of amorosity, although in English the word may have different connotations, but Freire meant social justice and cooperation and dialogue and respect. So I like that idea a lot, and I think we need that more than ever in teacher education and teaching English in Brazil. Sorry, I'm talking too much. I'm not
No,
giving enough space for you, but please interrupt me.
no, no, no. This is today. It's your day. Uh, I was reflecting here, and I mean, it's all part of the as that's why the complex paradigm is so the complex perspective is so important because everything that you said, they're they're dynamically related, like peace, love,
Yes,
justice, and
yes,
equality. And so I think we need
yes.
people, of course, that we as researchers, and we focus on a specific topic because that's how we make
Hmm.
science. But uh,
Yeah.
uh, I think we need to advertise more that it's all interconnected and all related.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was even thinking about this the other day. We could take a subject and several researchers from different perspectives look at the
Yeah,
same object, and then we could all talk about it, which would be, I don't know, multidisciplinarity or, transdisciplinarity that, applied linguistics
yeah,
talk about. And that's not my idea. I think Wilson Leff or somebody else must have talked about this already. But wouldn't this be interesting, like this phenomenon now of the emotions during the pandemic, so
yes,
different researchers looking at it from different angles. That would be
yeah,
great.
actually, great. So thinking about those concepts that we you just
Yes.
mentioned. So in your publications, you have reflected on the relationship among beliefs, motivation, identity, and emotions
Mm-hmm.
in foreign language learning and teaching. So you have already talked about their importance, but I just want you to hear some words on the importance of those topics. And
Mm-hmm.
which other concepts would you like to approach in your research in
Mm-hmm.
the near future?
Okay. So please do not let me forget the last part of your question
Okay.
because I was concerned about the first part only. Yes, I thought that I could give an example to you, my own example, and I wrote about this in 2003. When I graduated, I had this belief that I had to have a native
Mm-hmm.
speaker accent. I don't know why I had that belief, and I didn't know I had that belief. So there was this belief, and maybe it made me feel uncomfortable with myself as a language user or speaker, because I felt maybe unsure, uncomfortable, insecure about my when I spoke English. So all these emotions were tied to this belief. I need to sound like a native speaker. I don't sound. I need to sound like one, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
meant. And then this American person who was visiting Brazil, and I think I expressed this something about my accent. I don't like my accent, or I need to have a native speaker accent. And he said, "What's wrong with a Brazilian accent?" I mean, when he said that sentence, to me it was like, wow, yeah, what's wrong with a Brazilian accent? I had never thought about that. So you see the importance of other people in your
Yes.
uh, learning, in your any learning. People need to ask you questions. People need to intervene sometimes, like in real life. Maybe you don't know the benefit of your comment, how you can help, how you can be helping other people by one of your comments. Of course, you can prejudice, I mean, not harm as well, but we hope that our comments are used to make people think.
Yeah.
So when he said that, I started, oh, but it doesn't mean that your belief changes at that time.
Yeah, it
It does not,
takes a
because
long
it
time.
has been, yeah, it takes a long time. It has been formed for many, many years, many, many experiences, and people talking to you and you hearing all the time, everything. So, but the thing is, when he said that, you start paying attention
Yeah.
to it. So you become aware, and then you start reading about it. And then I was able to have readings about it because I was a researcher. So I started reading Vivian Cook and other people who started writing about it at that time. And then you start seeing other authorities talking about that new belief, that new view. And then you started, of course, some people could reject it. Me, I started accepting it. So it took many years to change that belief, and with it, the emotions as well, and my identity. Because before I used to have a deficit language speaker identity. And then when he asked that question, as I started experiencing different things and different views, the emotions started to change, like you begin to feel proud, more satisfied. Okay, I commit some mistakes, but it's okay. And then your identity, you start to construct a different identity of yourself as a language speaker. And that was important for me as a teacher educator, language teacher educator as well, to be, I mean, I don't know if I am, but you hope that you are a role model for your students in this aspect as well. Because as I was one of those students, I also saw many, many students along the way that had the same belief that I had.
Yes.
And then I tried to talk to them and make them aware of this. Although things have changed in the past years, and I see more and more students with the view that it's okay to have my own accent. We have different speakers, and all accents are valid, and etc. So probably because we hear more about these things than at that time. Thank God.
Yeah.
So
Let me just,
don't you think?
yeah, I agree. And yeah, I was thinking here,
Yeah,
because this project now is making me change many of my beliefs, because I always, I mean, I know that we all make mistakes, and especially foreign
yeah,
speakers and non-native speakers, it's
yeah,
okay to make mistakes. So
yeah,
we keep repeating those sentences,
yeah,
and I thought
yeah,
I believed that, but I am a very good editor. So every time I had to speak English on the internet, for example, I used to edit perfectly because I was so ashamed of my own mistakes. And now I cannot do that because it's live.
yeah.
So I wonder if we have studies about that, this moment that there is a click and we
Right.
start changing our beliefs, because I knew that I knew that I was insecure and ashamed for a long time. But
Mm-hmm.
now that I'm becoming, I mean, I'm really trying to change now that I'm
Yeah,
actually acting. I don't know
yeah,
if you have studies
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, well, when one article that I published, I think I called these triggering moments of reflection.
Yeah.
When something triggers you, like it triggered me and now it's triggering you, this aha moment. I don't know if there are other studies, but that's a very good point, and maybe I should, try to find it because it's amazing, isn't it? Because it's
Yes.
like you see another window, another door, another possibility, right? Because when you are stuck in one way of thinking, and we are dealing with that unfortunately nowadays, you know what I'm talking about. And so people they don't look, they like here, and that's the bad part, or the negative side of some beliefs. Some they can make you not look at other
Yeah.
ways, but as we know, there are ways of that people can change if they want to. And so it's amazing when that happens because we feel like we are growing,
Yeah.
we are seeing other opportunities, and that makes us perhaps better equipped to help our students, I think,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
they may go through the same process. And the last part of your question is what other concepts?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had forgotten about this, but I think I started looking into beliefs, emotions, identities, and also motivation. And I'm very interested now in the pedagogy of love that I told you about. Yes, so I spent the last year working and doing an extensive literature review on this in the United States, and I didn't know I would find so many studies on love. Because when I started become interested in this, I said, who has written about love? So you go to one article, another article, but I found PhD thesis and dissertations, master thesis on love in the United States and other countries. So I'm still working with that material. It's a lot of information, but it was a wonderful reading, and I would like to continue researching that and working with this. I like it a lot.
Great. And especially because, as we said before, it's all connected. I
Yes,
think
exactly.
you have focused on different but not that different topics. They're all part of
Yes,
the same system,
yes,
which is the more effective side, our more
yeah,
effective sides that are totally related to our actions and practices.
yes.
So, this is I've been asking these questions to all the participants because of the context. I
Hmm.
mean, the current context. So,
Hmm.
how do you think reflecting about beliefs, emotions, and attitudes toward language and language teaching can help us learn and teach in this, as Larson Freeman said, tumultuous times. So, how
Hmm.
thinking about that can help us in this moment?
Hmm. Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about that
Yeah,
in our previous answers, but as you said, a lot of beliefs and emotions are coming to surface right now with all this pandemic and all this having to teach online for some people. I haven't been required to do that yet. But like you, I've heard some colleagues or some former students saying that they have to teach online now, and this brings all sorts of emotions for them
yeah,
and beliefs. So, what do you believe about teaching online, learning online? So, some are saying, I don't believe in this because we are always stressed out. I don't have time. I am in my house. I have kids. I have this and that. How am I going to teach something of quality? And without the support and the infrastructure that we know they need to have.
right.
And actually, yesterday I was watching a video by Carla Coscarelli,
I watched
and
it
she
too.
was great. Yeah, I loved what she said, and she was so compassionate and understanding towards teachers' needs, and saying, this is a remote online teaching, and I loved that term. It's not online or distance education. This is what we can do for now. So whatever the beliefs and emotions that we have, excuse me, I
Okay.
think I need some water.
Yeah, I'm also with my water here.
Yeah. They will come to surface because we are facing unprecedented times where one of the biggest emotions right now is fear.
Yeah,
Fear of death, fear of death, our own and our loved ones, fear of what's going to happen, of the uncertain, of the future, of things not going back to normal. And we've always, as human beings, we usually avoid this emotion, fear.
yeah,
We don't want to be face to face with fear, although fear can be beneficial and helpful sometimes and has helped us in previous times, historic times, prehistoric times, if you don't have fear, you don't survive because you need to be alert to the dangers of the world. But we fear a lot of emotions as well. We fear our own emotions, and we do everything to disguise or not to face them, uncomfortable emotions. Of course, joy, happiness, everybody likes and wants those, but sadness and anxiety and anger and fear, we don't want to face those. And so this moment is a moment that people are being asked to maybe to sit with those emotions and whatever the beliefs they have as well about science,
Yeah.
about life. So who do I trust? Do I trust science, that has proved that if we follow these measures, we will survive? Or do I follow other people who believe in darkness? And what emotions come up for this? We are seeing a lot of angry discourses here in Brazil as well. You know about this. And so we teachers and learners, we are in the midst of this all, and it's very hard. So like I said, what I could say is, if you, I mean, I told my students, I asked them, we had online meeting, and I asked them how they were, and they were doing well considering the situation. But they also said, I feel anxious, I feel, I was feeling anxious, now it's okay. Most of them are with their families. And what I tried to tell them was, at this moment, there's no right way to feel anything. I mean, you can feel anything and it's okay because it's very scary. It is
Yeah.
very scary. And we should not should ourselves to feel something, oh, I shouldn't feel fear, or I shouldn't feel joy, whatever. So it's a moment that we need to sit with ourselves and maybe invite some emotions to have some tea with us or a beer or wine, and just say, hello, anger, hello, fear,
Yeah.
hello, anxiety. Tell me what you're thinking, and the beliefs also that you can identify about your learning, your teaching during these times, and especially about online teaching that some teachers are being required to do, and these are bringing a lot of anxiety to students and teachers, student teachers who are my students.
Yes, and the awkward situation is that those feelings and emotions, they always existed, but now that we are
Yes,
it's bizarre because now that we are protected with our screens, those emotions, they are
yes.
popping up. And
Ah,
what I
interesting.
was thinking about and is how connected they are, because I have lots, not lots, but some teachers, some friends who are teachers,
Uh-huh.
and they're telling
Uh-huh.
me stories, and I'm thinking about them
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
parents now, they're very afraid because they're afraid of losing their jobs and afraid of uh,
Yes.
getting, I mean, ran out of money and not
Yes.
having the money to pay the school. And then
Yes.
with because of that,
Yes.
they start um saying that the work of the teachers are not good enough, and teachers schools should reduce teacher salaries, and so
Oh
it's
my
all, yeah,
God.
it's all. And student teachers become very frustrated and I mean afraid also because of the fear of losing their jobs. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's, as you
And
said,
they're
I think
being
now it's the time to
asked.
sit down with those feelings, and because now they are
Yeah.
becoming so apparent, so live.
Yes. Yes, they are. Yes, you're right. And perhaps because we are in a crisis situation. This is a crisis. And
Yeah.
all crisis makes us come into contact with our most primitive, or basic emotions, and the way we were living, we did everything to distract us from those emotions. You
Hmm.
get the cell phone, you go to the internet, and you can still do those things now. I'm not saying that people are not doing, but the crisis, they put us into face to face with those raw emotions, and we are not used to do that. So it's normal that they will come to surface, and then we have to know perhaps how to identify them. At least, I'm feeling anger, a lot of anger, and express that somehow, or let it grow through you, flow through you, and then let it pass, but acknowledge it, not
Yeah.
disguise it, not deny it, because that would be worse. It's okay to feel all kinds of emotions,
Yeah.
because we are human beings. And I usually tell my friends that why people say sorry when they cry. Why do we say sorry when we cry if we don't say sorry when we laugh? They're both basic human expressions of emotion. So I like crying. I don't. I mean, of course, because I think it's because of the expectations, and this is something also related to the power of emotions. What kind of emotions are you allowed to
Yeah.
express? Especially when we talk about gender,
Mm-hmm.
So for women, it's okay to cry. For men, it's not okay to cry, or it's okay to cry in certain places. Teachers cannot cry in the classroom, or some teachers can, So you have all these rules on emotions and related to power as well.
Yeah.
Michalino Zembilas, he has wonderful work about this as well. But in any case, I think we need to give ourselves permissions to feel and to believe things and try to identify them in this time.
Yeah.
That's what I would say, I guess.
And as teachers, we are not. I mean, in most of the cases, we are not allowed to be
No,
weak
no,
and to be vulnerable. And
no.
now it's the time, maybe, to really acknowledge that it's okay not to be
Yes.
okay.
Yes, it's okay that my class is what I could do for today for this online class, guys.
Yeah.
I have my kids, I have the shopping, I have so many things going on in my house, and I'm gonna be here with you today, but it's not the best class. But teachers are asked, or think, believe that they have to be perfect, and we cannot be vulnerable and everything. So that's a very aspect that you said, Ronald. I agree with you.
Yeah. And so um, when we read your work, we know that you advocate in favor of a contextual approach in the research of
Hmm.
beliefs. And so
Hmm.
I want to know, how do you think our current situation? We have talked about that, but uh, how this situation that we're living now could influence uh, language learning and its research.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it already has. I saw a call for papers for the Brazilian Journal of Applied Linguistics on research on language learning and teaching in the times of pandemia.
And
So I thought it was
yeah,
great.
system two,
You know.
there is a call for papers on system two.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a special
Oh, I didn't
issue
know that.
on
Oh.
the pandemic.
Yeah, so that's one, and then the other one I told you by Sarah Mercer on teachers' well-being during this pandemic, and she sent out a survey, online survey. So I think it's going to we are going to have a lot of research on this topic after this, because as you said, a lot of things are coming up, especially emotions, beliefs, and motivation. How motivated are students or teachers to teach online or to learn online? Identities, what are your identities as an online teacher or learner, or as a researcher? Everything has, I mean, is, how do you say this? In Portuguese I can say this, is being changed.
Yeah,
Right? Everything, the times are changing, like Bob Dylan
yeah,
said. So everything is changing, and I think researchers, we have a great pool of data there, material to research in this new context, studying at home, teaching at home, everything at home.
yeah.
working online. Yeah, I haven't, like I said, I haven't been required to teach, but I said I thought it was my duty to connect to my
Hmm.
students, you know. And I was glad I did because one of the students said she was feeling, how do you say this, desamparada. She was feeling left
Yeah.
alone, I
Uh-huh.
guess, you know. She was feeling alone. She wanted this connection, and some of them wanted some tasks to do at home to give them a guide, you know, to give them direction. And so we are trying to see alternatives to do together because I also don't want to pressure or put one more thing
Yeah.
on their lives, you know, unless they want. And again, it has to be with everybody, you know, and not everybody has access. And this is something that some people still don't
Yeah.
understand. They think that, you know, and I heard Diane Larson Freeman saying that in, I think it was in Wyoming. No, she was in Vermont.
Vermont.
Vermont, some people there didn't have the Wi-Fi, you know.
And here in
So
Australia,
can you
it's the
imagine?
same.
Yeah. So we need to understand those situations, those
Yeah.
contexts is when we say, you know, everybody has to be online. So I am respecting my students in that sense because not all of them were in this online meeting. So whatever I'm doing, it's extra. You know, it's for those who want, who those who are there. But I think it's important to connect to them.
Yeah.
You know.
I learned that here in Australia, there are some people who live in distant locations, and I mean really difficult places to go to reach. And these people, they're receiving a kit, a pack every week with activities, and I mean, and that's it. So
Yeah.
I wonder how I mean helpless and I mean
Yeah.
left alone those people feel right now, because
Yeah.
we sometimes think that
Yeah.
in a developed country it's different, but actually it's not that
Mhm.
different.
Yeah, and some people they think that, oh no, of course everybody has internet connections. Everybody has this and that. And I think that's dangerous. I mean, a little bit dangerous for some, um, you know, some population
Hmm.
that don't have access because we can exclude, and that's
Yeah.
not right because you know, like you and I, we are very fortunate to have these conditions. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have internet right now, you know. Then my emotions would be, you know, those no,
Yeah.
because that's one thing. What do we do with this connection that we can have? That's very important. And I know other people live without it and they are okay with it. You know, we have different ways of lives, and people have survived actually without internet. Perhaps these people are better suited to survive than
Yes.
us because they have lived in the country isolated. They plant, they harvest, you know, what they need. So I keep thinking about those people, you know, and I think maybe I should learn with them. I started thinking that I should have a vegetable garden in my house, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't know what can happen.
Yeah. I think we won't be the same after this,
No.
and
Or we hope we won't, at least the way we were in
yeah.
some senses, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think in our area it's difficult to, because we need time in order to research. In other areas,
Yes.
there are many studies being published daily on
Yes.
this issue that is going on now.
Yeah.
But since
Yeah.
I mean, in teaching and learning, we need time to investigate, and I mean,
Yes.
so I think
Yes.
we'll have to wait a
Yes.
little bit.
Yes. And we also have the ethical issues
Uh,
of securing the approval, the ethical committee's
yeah,
approval, right? So that takes time as well, you know. So
yeah.
because we deal with human beings, and so that takes a lot of time. That's a good point.
So, Anna, I think it was one of the best chats I had in my life about language teaching and learning.
Oh, thank you.
And
So sweet. Oh, I've
to
enjoyed it as
it was very nice. I felt very comfortable interviewing you.
me
Uh,
too.
yeah, it was a really nice moment. So before we
Yeah.
conclude, I'm asking all the participants to finish their participation with an advice or with a word.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Mm-hmm.
so, what would you say now to teacher educators, to teachers, and to learners?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I thought of some general things, not academically
Mm-hmm.
related, because I think we need this more than ever. I would say you are doing the best you can right now. You know, acknowledge your fears, emotions, doubts, anxieties, beliefs. It's okay. We'll get through this. And if you feel like studying, do it. If you feel like reading, do it. If you don't feel like doing anything, respect that.
Yeah.
It's okay. Whenever you feel the need, you will do whatever you need to do if you can. I know some situations are difficult, you
Yeah.
cannot
Because
choose,
fear
but if you
paralyzes
can
too.
choose, yes, exactly. Paralyzed. And another thing, you may have how do you say this, a blackout or, a blank.
Burnout.
You,
Yeah.
you, you don't know what you're thinking. Burnout, yeah. Some days, whatever you do is the best you can do, and that's okay. And other days, you can also learn and watch live interviews, such as this one. I've seen many wonderful webinars, with wonderful researchers that otherwise I would be paying a lot of money to
Yeah.
listen to, And I was so happy when Isla canceled the event that was going to be
Yeah.
this year in August, and they postponed it to next year. And they said that they could accept now online presentations. So I was happy about that because I think it's an
Yes.
alternative to people who
A lot of
usually
money.
spend a lot of money, yeah, to the other countries. But a friend of mine said, "Oh, I can't stand online anymore," you know. So different emotions. In any case, I'm so grateful for technology, and connect with each other, connect with the people you love. We are in physical isolation, but not emotional isolation. Exchange ideas. I thought it was a great opportunity. I said, well, I was going to have the school teachers in my class, but sometimes they are not able to go because they work a lot. So why not have it now? And they accepted. So I think it's a great. We can take advantage
Yes.
of the opportunities we have and try to stay healthy emotionally, spiritually, physically, doing exercise if you can, eating well, and connecting with yourself in whichever ways works for you. I try to meditate. I'm not always successful, but I try to do it with myself, do some yoga, and I think it helps a lot to have some quiet moment because I've been working a lot. I mean, I'm not teaching, but I've been working a lot. So, and sometimes I have to stop and do something else because otherwise, when we are at home, we forget the boundaries,
Yeah.
right? And we know that professors, we can go crazy as well. So I'm to us as well, this productivity. I even posted an article, a wonderful article by a researcher who works in Canada. I forgot her name now, but saying this, forget about productivity right now a little bit, try to think about your mental health.
Yeah.
Um, Wonderful article. I'll see if I can send it to you if I track it back.
Yeah. Please.
But this is what I thought. I think we need to try to stay balanced and healthy, and in peace if possible. I know there are several, very hard situations right now. And I pray for these people and I pray for everybody every day, so that we can go through this
Yeah. Yeah. And I
together.
think, yeah, and I think more and more studies on your area of expertise and your cup of tea. I think your more studies on that are necessary because we
Yeah.
know so little about those aspects related to our professional lives.
Yes.
We tend to uh, think that our mental and well-being is only connected to our informal lives, to leisure. But I think
Yeah.
more and more studies need to focus on well-being and emotions and beliefs
Yeah.
about professional environments and professional activities.
Yes, yes, and about teacher educators as well.
Yeah,
We don't see a lot of research on teacher educators. Mostly is on teachers and learners. But what about us, what we are doing? And yeah, so I want to thank you, Ronald, for this great initiative, this great project and opportunity. I think it's wonderful that we have this opportunity and chance to talk to a lot of people,
yeah,
and people can listen to different researchers from all over the world, and maybe you have other ideas that we'll get together, other researchers discussing about something else. So I look forward many wonderful ideas, and thank you so much for having me and for this wonderful talk.
so thank you so much, Anna.
I mean, I'm not, yeah,
I'm very grateful and honored that I had this idea also, because it's been
yeah,
great. I think I have never studied so much to do these interviews, because I had to read about the participants' life and works, and so I
yeah,
have learned a
yeah,
lot. And the interviews are also
yeah,
moments that I've been uh, enjoying a lot. So thank you so much.
yes,
And I think
thank
I have
you.
been receiving excellent feedback on,
Wonderful.
yes,
Yeah.
people from different places, from places that I have never thought I would reach. I have,
Yes, you
so I think
see?
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you have time, you could write about this project, this
Yes,
experience.
yeah, I'm thinking about
How
that.
you have changed, your identities and what you have learned. Yeah, I heard, when I was listening to Diane Larson Freeman, and she said, you did your homework. So I thought, Ronaldo must be reading a lot.
Yes, a lot, but it's good
Yeah,
because
but this is wonderful.
yes, it's a different kind of purpose, because sometimes when we
Yeah.
read academic texts, we have a purpose, and it's so our lives are so fast and crazy that
Yes,
sometimes we don't pay
yes.
attention to some aspects that those interviews are making me pay attention to. So it's been a
Yes,
great
exactly.
time.
I think we need some time just to daydream, to think about something without the pressure, something different, because we read to publish, we read to correct, to give feedback. And sometimes, it's good to read something and just think about, wonder.
Yeah, and also
So this wonderment.
this project is also an initiative to take care of my mental health, because I need to create in order to feel good. So all the time,
Yes,
yeah,
that's
I
wonderful.
like
Yes.
creating and conducting and implementing
Yeah.
projects. So it's been
Wonderful.
great.
That's great. I'm so happy. Yeah, and we get the benefit of that. So that's wonderful. Keep creating.
So thank you so
So that's a
much.
good advice. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
creating,
you.
creating. I think it's
Yeah, keep creating.
yeah, it's a good one.
Thank you, Ronald.
Thank you. I hope we
Yeah.
can interact more soon, and do other
Yes, me
things
too.
together.
Thank you and have a good night.
You
Okay.
too. Have a good day. Bye.